I cheated with the architect of our house, and I planned to run away with our international credit card. But my husband discovered everything and took revenge at the airport, making me go through the greatest embarrassment of my life. My name is Camila, I am 34 years old, and I am a marketing manager at a medium-sized company. I have always been very dedicated to my career and, for many years, this was part of my identity. I got up early, I took care of the house, my body, my mind, or at least I tried. I was the typical woman who everyone said had the perfect life. On the outside, maybe. On the inside, it was just silence and the constant feeling that, little by little, I was fading away. I always thought I was mature, centered, faithful, until I began to question if it was all worth it, especially when we started to feel invisible inside our own home. My husband's name is Javier. He is 37 years old and works as a civil engineer. He was always a proper, methodical, and even affectionate man. At first we met in college, and we were the model couple for a long time. We got married after 5 years of dating and spent another 8 years together as husband and wife, but the last 2 were dry. We slept in the same bed, but it seemed like there were walls between us. Everything was routine, the same schedules, the same Saturday dinners, the same uninteresting questions. Sometimes I would say things just to see if he was still paying attention, and when he did not react, I died a little inside. There was no betrayal, no shouting, no drama, but there was also no warmth, no desire, no real connection. Javier seemed like a roommate who shared my Netflix bill. Sometimes he would spend whole nights in front of the computer, working on projects that never ended. I tried to start a conversation, propose a trip, change something in our routine, but I always heard, "It is not possible now." Deep down, I think he thought I was a very demanding woman, difficult to please, but he never said it out loud. I was withering. I became colder, more distant, and, at first, I did not even realize it. There was a time when I blamed myself for feeling dissatisfied. I looked around and saw friends in much worse relationships, some even with aggressive husbands. And there I was, complaining about a guy who at least did not cheat on me and always paid his bills on time. It was as if my sadness was not valid, but the emptiness was real. The desire to leave the house without saying anything, just to feel the outside world again. I saw myself in the mirror and I no longer knew if I liked the woman I had become, a robot with lipstick and a jacket. Still, I kept trying. We decided to renovate the house, and I saw it as an opportunity to rekindle something between us. I thought that creating a new home with our own look could bring us closer together again. And, for a moment, I almost believed that this would work, but the truth is that in this attempt to rebuild the house, I had no idea that I was about to demolish my entire life, and that the man who came to help with the walls would end up breaking all my defenses. If I had known what awaited me, maybe I would have done everything differently, or maybe not. Today, looking back, I see that the betrayal began long before the kiss existed. It all started when I stopped feeling loved, when I started to wish that someone would really look at me, see me, and when that someone appeared, I could not resist. It was not right, it was not fair, but it was real. And that is why I am here telling this story, not to justify what I did, but because I carry all this like a weight that I have not yet been able to let go of. His name was Martin. He was 36 years old, he was an architect, and he had that light attitude of someone who never seems to be in a hurry, a full, dark, and well-groomed beard, and a smile that came easily, even when talking about the most technical aspects of the renovation. From the first meeting, he was different from other professionals we had already dealt with. He looked me in the eyes when he spoke, he asked for my opinion and seemed genuinely interested in my ideas. Detail. Javier did not even bother to participate in these first meetings. He said he trusted me to take care of it. Martin started coming to our house frequently for the project, always with plans, samples, new ideas. Sometimes he would bring coffee, other times he would make jokes that made me laugh, something I did not even remember knowing how to do. At first it was just a relief, a distraction, but the more I saw him, the harder it was for me to ignore what I was feeling. It was as if he occupied exactly the space that Javier left empty. I started to choose better clothes for these meetings. I paid attention to my makeup. It was ridiculous, but it made me feel alive again. The conversations began to deviate a bit from the topic of the house. First, there were silly comments about music, movies, series. Then, we started exchanging messages outside of business hours. He sent memes. I responded with emojis. Things intensified in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. One night, he asked me how I really was. Not that automatic question, he really wanted to know. And I broke down. I said I felt lonely, ignored, empty. He listened to everything without judging, just listening. And then he said it was hard to understand how someone like me could feel that way. I started to fantasize. I imagined what it would be like if I had met Martine before, if I had married someone who saw me like that. It is funny how lack makes us create entire movies in our heads. I knew this was dangerous. I knew I was playing with fire, but the truth is that I did not care anymore. It was as if I had been suffocating for so long that, when I breathed air, I became addicted to the feeling. Martine became my favorite secret, and, the more hidden it was, the more exciting it became. The turning point was one night when he invited me for coffee after work. I said I could not, but my heart wanted to say yes. When I got home, I received a text message from him that said, "If you come, I promise not to complicate things, I just want to talk." I went. It did not take 5 minutes for the conversation to turn into caresses and the caress into a kiss. It was the most wrong and desired kiss of my life. That night I crossed a line from which there was no turning back, and I did not even want to have it back. After that, everything changed. His visits to the construction site continued, but now they were full of tension. Every look, every disguised touch, was pure adrenaline. Guilt came, of course, but the excitement was stronger. I began to feel that I deserved this. After so long on the sidelines, I had the right to a spark, but what I did not know is that this spark would turn into an uncontrolled fire, one that would burn everything I thought I had under control. The relationship with Martine quickly went from desire to addiction. With each encounter, with each hidden touch, I sank deeper. It was no longer just about sex, it was about being heard, desired, and chosen. He said things that made me feel special, as if I were the woman of his life, and I wanted to believe it. Javier, on the other hand, remained oblivious to everything. Some nights I slept on the couch. I would say I was too tired. I looked at him and felt guilt, but it was a guilt that did not last long. Deep down, I thought he deserved it. We started talking about running away. At first it was just a joke. What would happen if we went to a place where nobody knew us? But it soon became a plan. Martine talked about small towns in Europe where life was simple and cheap. He said he could work remotely, that I could restart my career there. At first I laughed. Then I started researching tickets. It was crazy, but it was also the first time in years that I felt alive. It was a tempting madness, and little by little, it was becoming a decision. That is where the credit card came in, Javier's international one, which he rarely used and to which I had access for years. Martine suggested we use it to buy tickets. "It is the least he can do after everything he put you through," he said. I resisted for a while, but then I convinced myself. It was like a reparation, an investment from Javier in seeing me happy, even without knowing it. I took the details in secret and together we bought 2 tickets. Departure scheduled for 3 weeks from then. Everything seemed too perfect. During this period, I began to act. I said I was going to meetings when I was with Martine. I invented short work trips to go see him in another city. Lying became my primary language, but I did not feel so bad. In my head it was just a transition. Soon, all of that would end. I told myself that Javier would not even care, that he would secretly prefer it this way, that it was better than continuing to live in that loveless marriage. I believed this version of the story as firmly as I could. Every day, I moved further away from the real world. I started to disconnect from friends. I stopped visiting my parents. The only thing I could think about was the day I would escape, the suitcase I had already started to pack in secret, the new beginning with Martine. Sometimes I daydreamed about the airport scene, me leaving that country, those memories, that life. It was almost a movie script in my head. But what I did not know is that someone else had also started to write a script, a completely different one, and that I was just the naive character in the tragedy. In the last few days before the trip, Martine was anxious. He sent messages all the time, asking me if I was sure. I said yes, I was sure of it. And I really was. There was no turning back. In my head, what I was doing was courage, it was liberation. The submissive and invisible woman had finally decided to choose herself. That is what I believed. That was the lie that gave me strength. I did not know that this escape plan would actually be my own emotional captivity, and that everything was about to fall apart in a way I could have never imagined. I thought I was in control, that I could balance both worlds with an almost professional lightness. During the day, the dedicated and smiling wife; at night, hidden messages, rushed meetings, whispered plans. But lies are like cracks. Over time, they start to spread. I started to forget what I had told whom. Once I mentioned a restaurant that I only went to with Martine, and Javier found it strange. On another occasion, I left a perfume that was not mine in the car. Small flaws, small warnings, which, of course, I ignored. Javier started to act differently, more attentive, calmer. He looked at me strangely, as if he were putting pieces together. I even joked once, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And he simply replied, "I am trying to understand some things." I laughed, but inside I froze. It was the first time I wondered if he knew, but I still went ahead. I underestimated him. I thought that if he had found out, he would have panicked and confronted me, but Javier was calculating. He waited. I watched and did not realize I was digging my own grave. Meanwhile, Martine began to change too. He was more nervous, impatient. Sometimes he treated me with a certain arrogance, as if I were a child. When I asked him what was wrong, he said it was just the stress of the trip, but I began to feel that something was out of place. One day he was rude on the phone and hung up on me. Another day he was late for a meeting and seemed distant. Still, I continued. After all, I had already bet everything on that escape. I could not give up now. I began to feel lonely again, but now it was worse, because I had destroyed my foundations to build something that was also beginning to crumble. But I clung to the idea that it was just a phase, that everything would be fine afterwards, that it was just stress before freedom. I kept lying to Javier, although I did not know if he still believed me. And the more I lied, the more I sank into an anguish that I tried to ignore. I was surrounded by distrust, tension, and a silence that screamed louder than any argument. There was a day when Javier came home from work early and caught me checking a suitcase in the guest room. I made up some excuse. I said I was going to visit a friend and needed to hide the surprise gift from him. He smiled, but it was a strange and uncomfortable smile. A smile that marked me. After that, he started to leave the house more often. He said he was arranging things at work, but he would come back late, sometimes smelling of alcohol. And I, who so longed for freedom, began to feel a fear that I could not explain. That week something changed in the air. It was as if the universe was warning me that the game had changed, but I kept insisting on playing by the old rules. Every message from Martine sounded more distant. Every silence from Javier seemed full of hidden meanings. I was between two men, and for the first time I did not feel desired by either of them, but I still followed the plan. After all, the tickets were bought and the card was already used. And my head insisted on believing that the worst had already passed. I had no idea that the real hell had not even started yet. The day of the trip dawned strangely. The sky was clear, the weather was nice, and even breakfast had a different taste. Javier woke up silent, but gentle. He kissed me on the forehead before leaving and said, "Take care today." At that moment, I thought it was just another neutral phrase, but later, remembering that kiss, it was a goodbye. My heart beat faster when he left. I was alone with my packed suitcase hidden in the trunk. A printed ticket at the bottom of my purse and my cell phone full of messages from Martine. Martine seemed excited. He sent audios saying he was on his way, that everything would be fine. "Let us meet at Gate 32, International Terminal." I read it like someone reading a love letter. Every word seemed like a promise. I took a calm shower. I put on the clothes I had chosen days before, discreet, comfortable, elegant. I wanted my new life to start with style. Before leaving, I left a cold, almost mechanical note. "I needed this. One day you will understand." I folded it and left it on the living room table, next to the cup he always used, and I left without looking back. The trip to the airport was almost unreal. I played cheerful music on the radio, and between traffic lights I smiled to myself. It was as if I were living the premiere of an escape movie. The sound of the suitcase rolling in the parking lot, the smell of the airport, the sound of the announcements over the loudspeaker, everything seemed magical. I went through security with a racing heart, but with the confidence of someone who had already won. I kept looking around, afraid of seeing Javier appear, but nothing. It was as if the universe had given me the green light. I felt invincible. I arrived early at the boarding gate. I sat down, looked at my cell phone. No new messages from Martín. I thought he was on his way. I stayed there watching people, creating stories for each of them. A few minutes later, a couple hugged each other tightly. A family was taking pictures and I was there, about to leave it all behind, with the absolute certainty that I was about to be reborn. I looked at my ticket, checked the flight number. Everything was fine. All that was missing was for Martín to show up, but he did not show up. And that is when the unease began to grow. I looked at my cell phone again. No notifications. I tried to call, voicemail. Once, twice, 3 times. I started to sweat. I thought, maybe traffic, maybe the light. I got up, went to the bathroom, took a deep breath. When I came back, the gate still showed the boarding time, but in my chest something was out of place. My instincts started to scream, but I shut it down. Calm down, he will arrive. It was at that moment that I heard my name called out loud in front of everyone, and when I turned around, I saw the face I feared most at that moment. Javier was standing there alone, with a cell phone in his hand and a look I had never seen before. Not anger nor sadness. It was an empty look, a look of someone who already knew everything. And at that moment, what seemed like the beginning of my freedom became the beginning of my biggest nightmare. I still tried to feign surprise, I tried to smile, but his voice resonated so loudly that not even the airport music could drown it out. Do you want to tell me, or do you prefer that I tell everyone? There, in front of strangers, my escape turned into a stage, and the show was just beginning. I was frozen. The ticket trembled in my hand, and the sound of Javier's voice cut through the air like a knife. The people around began to look, as if they realized something was about to happen. He did not shout, but he put on a little show. The calm way he spoke was even worse. Camila, tell them why you are here. The architect's bill, the credit card bill. I tried to speak, but my mouth would not obey. It was as if all the air in the airport had disappeared and I, for the first time in a long time, had nowhere to hide. Javier took his cell phone out of his pocket and began to show screenshots, photos, audios, messages. Some passengers moved away, but others stayed to watch. It was like a soap opera scene in real time. I wanted to run, to disappear, but my legs were stuck to the floor. She bought tickets with my card. She was going to run away with her lover, the architect of the house we renovated. And then he delivered the final blow. He opened a video on his cell phone and held up the screen. It was not a print, it was a video of me. I was there on my knees in front of Martín, who had his pants down, performing oral intimate relations in the middle of our home's construction site. No cuts, no room for denial. He spoke calmly, almost whispering, "You did not know about the cameras, did you, Camila?" At that moment, the world spun and I knew. He had everything planned. He had known everything for a long time and was simply waiting for the right moment to bury me with surgical precision. I tried to pick up my phone to call Martín, but Javier was faster. Oh, he is not coming. He has probably already left. Or maybe he is busy explaining to the police why he tried to use a card that is not his. My blood ran cold. My head began to spin. Javier had gone beyond what I had imagined. He not only knew, he had anticipated it. He had tracked the expenses. He had spoken with the bank and maybe even with a lawyer. Everything I thought I controlled had been out of my hands for days. I was just a piece on a board that he had already won. The airport security approached, noticing the tension. One of the agents asked for documents while Javier explained that there was a possible misuse of the card. I tried to maintain my composure, to say that it had all been a misunderstanding, but my voice was trembling. The airline employee looked at my ticket and looked at Javier. He showed the evidence. She used it without my authorization and was going to leave the country with me thinking I would never find out. His words burned like acid, and the worst part was seeing the looks around. Some with pity, others with pure judgment. It did not take long to realize that Martín was not coming. No message offline, he just disappeared. And there alone, surrounded by strangers and with my husband exposing me with screams, I understood the magnitude of the mistake I had made. Security decided to take me to a private room. They said they would verify the data and confirm the information. I could only cry. Not for the lost tickets, but because everything fell apart in an instant. The image of the woman I thought I was dissolved right there in the middle of an airport, between suitcases and witnesses. When they finally let me go, Javier was already gone. Only the silence and the stares remained, and the certainty that I had been destroyed in the most public, cruel, and deserved way possible. That scene has not left my head since. To this day, I remember his calm, firm face, with the certainty of someone who won. Because he did not curse me, he did not attack me, he simply exposed me with surgical precision. And that was the perfect punishment. The next day, I woke up to dozens of messages on my cell phone, some from unknown numbers, others from common friends. The video was already circulating. Someone at the airport filmed the whole scene and posted it on social media with the caption, "Unfaithful wife caught in the act trying to run away with her lover." I showed up with my suitcase trying to argue, Javier firmly reporting everything, and in the background the reactions of the people, laughter, murmurs, an audience watching my downfall in HD. It was surreal, and I did not even need to open the comments to know what they were saying. Javier did not look for me. He did not answer my messages. He completely disappeared. But 2 days later, I was officially notified of the divorce process with everything attached: proof of betrayal, misuse of the card, attempt to escape. He demanded the total separation of assets, the immediate cancellation of my access to all accounts, and even opened a civil case against me. And you know the worst part? I had no way to defend myself. Everything was there. Recorded, signed with my recklessness. Martín, in turn, evaporated. Disconnected number, deleted social media, as if he had never existed. The company where I worked did not overlook the scandal either. Although it was about my personal life, the video became so viral that it reached the directors. They called me in to talk. They said I was damaging the company's image. 2 days later, they fired me. I do not regret it, Camila. It is just a matter of reputation. I left the room with a folder in my hand and an empty soul. In 1 week, I lost my husband, my future, my job, and my dignity. People looked at me on the street and whispered. Some even smiled as if they recognized me. Javier's family immediately cut off contact, and mine, well, my mother called me crying. She said she did not understand how I had been capable of something like that. My father did not even speak to me. My brothers blocked me, friends disappeared. Even those who used to applaud me for being independent and bold now pretended not to know me. The silence was deafening. The shame was unbearable. I tried to delete the video from the internet, but it was too late. It was already on several gossip channels, WhatsApp groups, forums. I became a joke, an example, a warning. And to top it all off, the lawsuit against Martín came. Javier had reported him for misuse of data and attempted fraud. Since he used my cell phone and my access to Javier's card, the investigation turned against us. But since Martín disappeared, I was left with the weight of it all. I had to give a statement, explain the relationship, admit that I provided the data. Shameful, humiliating. Every sentence recorded in an official document. I voluntarily provided the card number and password to Mr. Martín. How did I get to this point? I did not even know anymore. In the following months, my life became empty. No job, no friends, no plans. Just me and the echo of the destruction I left behind. Javier moved on. I found out he moved, sold his house, and started attending events again, surrounded by people who treated him like a hero. And I became the ex from the scandal. A name remembered with mockery, a face pointed out with judgment, and no matter how much I tried to internally justify everything that led me there, deep down I knew. I destroyed everything myself, and now I was alone with the rubble. Today it is almost a year since that day at the airport. And even now, as I write this, I still feel the lump in my throat. I am not telling this story to play the victim. I know exactly what I did. I cheated on a man who trusted me. I betrayed a marriage of years. I let myself be carried away by a selfish fantasy. But that does not mean it has not hurt, that it does not continue to hurt. Shame has become part of my daily life. It appears in the crooked looks, in the doors that no longer open, in the uncomfortable silences when someone recognizes me. I tried to contact Martine later, although I knew it was useless. I sent emails, messages, I even looked for common acquaintances. Nothing. He disappeared. He never answered me again. He never apologized. He never gave an explanation. He simply ran away. And that was perhaps the most painful thing, realizing that I was nothing more than a disposable piece in a game, an escape plan that he abandoned when it became too much. In the end, he betrayed me as much as I betrayed Javier, but I had no one to defend me. The only thing left was to look in the mirror. I spent months isolating myself. I stopped going out, posting, and trying to look good. I started going to therapy after a panic attack in the supermarket when a woman walked past me and laughed mockingly. It was there that I realized I was trying to live as if nothing had happened, but everything was still inside me. The guilt, the regret, the feeling that even though I had caused everything, I was still human. I still felt it. I still wanted to start over. The psychologist told me that admitting all that was already a step, but there are days when not even getting out of bed seems possible. Javier, he is fine. From what I have been told, he met someone new. He seems happy, and honestly, I am happy for him. I have no hatred. I am not angry, just a bitter sadness knowing that I hurt him so much, that he trusted me and I broke that trust in a public, shameful, and cruel way. I have thought about writing a letter, asking for forgiveness, but I know he does not want to hear my voice, and maybe he is right, because there are apologies that do not fix anything. They only serve to ease the conscience of those who destroyed everything. Today, I live alone in a small house, with a simple job that I got with the help of a distant cousin. I live with little, but at least I have no more lies. I do not know if I will ever completely rebuild my life. I still have crises. I still wake up scared with memories of the airport, of the video, of the exposure. Sometimes I dream of Javier, sometimes of Martine, but the truth is that I no longer dream of escaping. Now I just want to find some kind of peace, a corner where I can breathe without fear. If you have come this far hoping for a redemptive ending, I do not have that to offer you. I am still in the process. I am still the woman who cheated, who was exposed, who fell. But I am also the woman who learned, albeit late, who understood that freedom is not about running away from something, but about facing who you really are. And I keep looking at myself every day, ashamed, yes, but also with the hope that one day all this pain will become just a memory and that I can finally forgive myself.